Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now. Black power.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Today is Wednesday, April 15, 2026. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Today marks the 79th anniversary of Jackie Robinson breaking organized baseball's color barrier, becoming the first black player to play in Major League game, but since 1884. But remember, the Major League stars were in the Negro Leagues. We're celebrating Jackie Robinson Day. Not only will we be sharing with you Howard Bryant's interview I did with him about his book on Jackie Robinson and Paul Robeson, whose birthday was April 9th. We also will share with you when we covered 3 years ago the opening of the Jackie Robinson Museum. Also, what's happening tonight, Roy Wood Jr. is hosting a live discussion with Howard Bryant about that book as well. So lots to talk about. Toledo, Ohio Police Department has released body camera footage showing an incident where a white officer threw a black teenager girl to the ground for jaywalking. Jaywalking. The American Postal Workers Union is launching a pro-mail-in voting advertisement. Plus, Pastor Otis Moss III breaks down the connection between citizenship, faith, and politics. It's time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
City leaders in Toledo, Ohio are demanding that charges be dropped after a 15-year-old girl was forcibly thrown to the ground Friday by a Toledo, Ohio police officer. Y'all, she was jaywalking. Cell phone video of the incident shared on social media by the girl's mother appears to show police questioning her before the situation escalated, resulting in her detention. On Tuesday, the Toledo Police Department released body camera footage showing the interaction between the officer and the teenage girl. The officer claimed the teen spat on him during the incident. The police department released over an hour of body cam and dash cam footage. Here's the officer's body cam video from the time he stopped the teen to the time he put her in the police car.
Go ahead and stop. Come up here to the front of the car, ladies. Go ahead and hop on over here to the front of the car, ladies. We'll talk to you in a second. All right, you guys are walking down the middle of the road. That's why we stopped you, okay?
Oh, so we're not supposed to walk in the street? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yep, you have to walk on the sidewalk. It's also a safety thing. People in Toledo don't know how to drive. Okay? How old are you guys?
Y'all are in the middle of the street. Y'all are in Toledo. Y'all know how Toledo people drive.
I don't even live here.
You're pretty bad.
Well, I live in Indiana. I'm just down here visiting my friends. Okay?
How old are you guys?
15.
Have you always said it? Are you a resident? Sorry. You got ID on you? How old are you? 18? You don't have an ID on you?
Oh, my.
Any of you guys have IDs on you?
No, I mean, I have my school ID at home. I don't know. Like.
You ladies live around here?
No.
All right, well, I need names. What's your last?
Let me call my mom, please.
Let me get your last name. You.
I understand the issue. Just pulled us over. Basically, we just walked.
First name. All right, first name.
Why is my mom not answering?
First name. I'm gonna ask you one more time, and I'm gonna take your phone and put you in handcuffs.
Who are you talking to?
Your first name.
I just told
You do without the attitude. You just gotta answer my questions. What's your date of birth?
Why is my mom not answering? I don't understand
Your
the
birthday.
issue, though. Call your mama. What the heck?
And what?
Or I'm about to call my dad. Somebody. Be running for it.
What's your birthday? So what year?
Talk to them for. We're minors. That's what I'm like.
All right. You don't want to answer questions.
What is your guys' like? What is his issue?
I'm asking you. Get your hand out of your pocket. Don't resist.
018.
You better stay back. Stand back.
Don't do that!
What?
Stop resisting.
For my fucking daughter! What is he doing for my daughter?
Hands behind your back. Hands behind your back. Your hands behind your back. Your hands behind your back.
Back up! I'm fuck you up.
Back up!
Stand up. Stand up. You spit all over me.
Keep him coming. Step up. Stand up. Stand her up. Stand up.
Oh my God!
Don't spit on me again.
My baby is the girl! Oh my God!
Back up.
It's on coordinates! Oh my God! Fuck you! Y'all got that badge number?
Folks, she was charged with resisting obstruction and harassment with a bodily substance, charges that she denied in court on Monday. The officer has since been reassigned. This is WTVG-TV's website. This is what City Councilwoman Venice Williams said, quote, "I saw the dash cam. I heard the baby cry out. Go to my iPad. This officer should not be on the streets. I feel for his safety and our safety. This is not me saying that the police are not needed in our community. We need you to work with us to save our babies and not beat our babies. I want all the charges dropped for this young lady, all of them, because this could have been prevented." My panel, Robert Patillo, civil rights attorney, the Patillo Law Group out of Atlanta, Rebecca Carruthers, president and CEO, Fair Election Center out of D.C. I have no idea why she's wearing that trash today. I don't know what the hell she's doing wearing a Cowboys hat on Jackie Robinson Day. Lord have mercy. Brian Shapiro, he is the host of Pushing the Limits. Glad to have y'all here. Robert, this is the sheer stupidity. This is real simple. Ladies, you're walking in the street. I need y'all to walk on the sidewalk, okay? You're not allowed to walk in the street. That's it. There was no need to give names and birthdays and stuff along those lines. Robert, you're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, this is where we got to start putting some real effort into how we are actually recruiting and training these officers. What we saw during the Obama administration was the format for 21st century policing, where we have actual trainings for law enforcement officers. How do you de-escalate a situation? That was a classic example. You can actually take that video and use that as an example of exactly what police officers should not do and how to escalate a situation to make it dangerous for everyone. It was a simple situation of girls walking in the street. If these were two 15-year-old white girls, I doubt they will be on the ground in handcuffs at the end of that interaction. However, because we now have this militarization of our police departments nationwide, we no longer have a Justice Department that we can count on that will step in and actually prosecute these officers. We have a president who is now telling people, don't take it easy on folks. They want to bring these militarized, tough-on-crime, Nixonian tactics towards our streets. We are seeing this increasingly, not just in this incident, but in incidents around the country where police officers have this John Wayne mentality when it comes to dealing with African Americans. And the idea of childhood or adolescence or teenagerness goes out the window for Black folks in this country. You are seen and considered with this concept called age estimation. They treat you like a grown person. They don't see 15-year-old little girls. They see somebody who's a danger, somebody who they need to investigate, someone they need to stop, someone they need to frisk. And as we see in this situation, it's only going to escalate. And this could have gotten a lot worse. And for the city councilwoman, I'm glad she spoke out, but we need to stop kind of coddling these officers and being afraid that somebody will call us, defund the police or soft on crime, etc. These officers need to be off the streets for a very long time. They need to be retrained. on how do you handle situations in communities. They need to understand how to de-escalate. And if we had a functioning justice system, this police department should be sued, and the family should recover from this. But is what we're dealing with in the atmosphere we have right now, they're making it very difficult for us to see any type of criminal justice reform or any type of damages for crimes committed by officers.
I just really have no understanding of how walking in the middle of the street, hey ladies, I need y'all to stay on the sidewalk, escalates into slamming somebody down and handcuffing them, Rebecca. I just don't. And again, this is, so you didn't like the attitude, so you're arresting them because of an attitude.
Having an attitude is not an arrestable offense. If this particular person cannot handle dealing with children, dealing with teenagers, then they shouldn't have a gun and a badge. And I hear law enforcement officers across the country, they'll say this is a tough job, it's a demanding job, it's stressful. Well, guess what? It's one of the few jobs where you really can't make mistakes because you do have a gun and a badge. You do have the lawful authority to take property, to restrain people, and to even take a life. Just like I wouldn't want my surgeon who's doing surgery on me to have a high rate of making mistakes. We ought to demand greater and more from law enforcement.
Brian.
Yeah, let me just start out by saying this. I'm not so sure if those young girls had the same skin color as me, that would have happened. That's not going without saying that some police officers don't do bad things to white people too, because they do. What the hell was that all about? All you have to do, anybody with common sense would say, hey, ladies, can you please do me a favor? Please don't walk in the streets. And that's it. There's no confrontation. Why are you asking them for their IDs? Why are you asking them for their names? That's an officer that's on a power trip, probably a racist officer. And okay, so the 15-year-old doesn't answer you immediately, doesn't give her name to you immediately. You put her in handcuffs? I mean, are you effing kidding me right now? That officer is back on the streets. I mean, how could this guy still have a job? This stuff gets me so angry. And, you know, I think about the George Floyds. I think about the Ahmaud Arbery's. I still talk about that case all the time. When some people that have my skin color say systemic racism doesn't exist, those people are what I call morons. That officer should, at a minimum, suspended without pay. That's at a minimum. I think he should lose his job. How traumatic for that 15-year-old girl. By the way, I heard spit at him. Let's just say, hypothetically speaking, she did. Okay, I don't condone that. But how did we get to that point to begin with? These people are supposed to be professionals. You're dealing with 15-year-old kids. That officer's life was never in jeopardy. These officers have no idea how to handle things in a de-escalation way. I think most officers wouldn't behave that way. But the fact that this guy still has a job, we have a problem in our society. And while all this is going on, there are people that are calling for the pardon of Derek Chauvin, who murdered George Floyd. Let's just call that for what it is. Now, I'm glad it didn't escalate to that point. But as you said, Roland, I was thinking exactly what you said to start this segment. All that officer had to do, hey, ladies, can you please do me a favor and move along to the side of the road and go on the sidewalk? Now, if they don't listen to you after you tell them to do that, then you ask for their names, because they're not doing what you're telling them to do. But why did it even come to that point in the first place? What a waste of taxpayer dollars, as far as I'm concerned.
This is what the police report said. This is a report in the Toledo Blade. The officer, quote, closed the gap between his body and the girl's body and utilized a balance displacement takedown technique to stop the girl's active resistance and to obtain compliance to place her into handcuffs. The officer, quote, then used joint manipulation on her left arm to gain control of her left arm, placing her into handcuffs. And then it says when the officer helped the girl up, she spit in his face. Got for two young girls walking in the middle of the street. And then people wonder why folks yelled, defund the police. Then they wonder why communities, black communities, brown communities, don't like cops. Exhibit 20,578. I'll be going
to real quick. Just real quick, this is also why police reports are not admissible in court, because we all saw exactly what happened in the video, and then we see what the report says, and they very rarely match up. We have to start holding officers accountable for lying on police reports by using flowery language. This is why these body cameras are so important that came about in the last decade, because we can finally have a non-biased accounting of what happened, as opposed to whatever they write in the report.
All right, folks, got to go to a break. We come back, more on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
MAGA Republicans ended diversity programs, cut funding for Black students, and fired federal employees. And they won't stop there. Now, they've redrawn congressional maps so that they can rig the November elections. But we have the power to stop them. By voting yes for fair elections, we have the final say on who represents us in Congress. This is a temporary measure to restore fairness. They are not backing down, and neither can we. Make a plan to vote by April 21st and vote yes for fair elections.
Hey everybody, I'm TD Jakes, and I want to encourage you to watch Roland Martin Unfiltered. It'll blow your mind.
A major U.S. Postal Service union has launched a national TV ad campaign promoting voting by mail. The 30-second ad features various voters, including a busy farmer and a flight attendant who shared their reasons for voting by mail. Sponsored by the 200,000-member American Postal Workers Union, the advertising campaign will begin airing in Ohio this week. The state is historically significant because Union Army soldiers cast the first mail ballots there in 1864 during the Civil War. The campaign will then expand to other states. Take a look.
I want to vote, but I work long shifts, so I vote by mail.
I want to vote, but I work sunup to sundown.
I vote by mail because my job is in the air.
My family needs me.
I'm usually on call.
It's hard for me to get there.
I'm stationed far from home.
I'm away at school.
We trust voting by mail.
It gives us time to decide.
I vote by mail because I know my vote will count.
Vote by mail. Keep it. Protect it.
Expand it.
Jonathan Smith, president of the American Postal Workers Union, clarified that the union's TV ad was produced before Donald Trump's executive order was issued and is not a direct response to it. But it damn sure is needed, Brian.
Yeah, I look back at, the election that took place in 2020. And when I go back to 2020, I think of, mail-in balloting and, what Donald Trump told his supporters not to do was to mail-in ballot. And then we fast forward to today. Donald Trump just had a mail-in ballot himself in Florida. He's telling his supporters that it's nothing but fraud. Don't do it. They're going to rig the election. He mail-in balloted himself, okay? The fact of the matter is, and Roland, you know this, there are people at a certain age that find it difficult to get in their car. Maybe they don't have a car. They don't have the ability to go to a voting booth and to vote. So they need mail-in balloting just like we desperately needed it during the global pandemic. But Donald Trump continues to lie about election fraud. Donald Trump continues, and it continues to be an attack on our democracy. Everybody should be allowed to mail-in ballot anytime they want to. There's no evidence of widespread voter fraud or Democrats rigging any elections for any reason, especially mail-in balloting. It is a ploy for Donald Trump, not only in the midterms because he knows it's going to be a Republican bloodbath, but it's also a ploy to try to steal the 2028 election. The more people that vote, let's be honest here, everybody, the more people that vote, the worse it is for Republicans. So when you scare people into voting with mail-in balloting, less people could possibly vote. That means a win for Republicans. So everything coming out of the mouth of MAGA Republicans when it comes to mail-in balloting are complete and utter lies. I love what this campaign is. We should be promoting any form of voting, let alone mail-in voting.
Well, it's no shock that we're seeing Republicans do this, and there has to be very aggressive pushback, Rebecca.
Sure. So Donald Trump issued the executive order August 2025, said that he was going to end vote by mail. Lawfully, he cannot do so. In December, we saw that the Post Office Board issued a rule saying that just because you drop off mail doesn't mean that it's going to be postmarked that day. So why does this matter? It matters because certain states rely on postmarking rules in order to count someone's voter registration. Also, some states require for you to have your ballot postmarked by Election Day. That's 14 states plus the District of Columbia if you want your vote by mail to be counted. There are other states that says that your mail-in ballot has to be received by Election Day, and there is no grace period. It makes me think of the race last week, the Supreme Court race in Wisconsin, where we are now seeing reports that there have been voters who mailed their ballots on March 23rd, and it wasn't received in time on August 7th for their vote to actually count. So while, yes, there should be promotion of vote by mail, but I also need the Postal Service Union and other unions to make sure that they're giving money to organizations that's fighting on behalf of voters to make sure that every ballot is counted this year. We see an administration that's doing a full court press to make it harder for various voters across the country to have their ballot counted this year. The reason why this administration is doing so, because they understand that many of their policies are extremely unpopular. They are doing things that the American voters do not want them to do. And so this is going to be a tough election for them. So we need people of goodwill. We need unions. We need individual donors to give to organizations to make sure that there is active litigation, make sure there's actual civic education so people understand as soon as you have an opportunity to vote. Do not wait till the last day. Do not wait till the end of early voting period. Check with your state. As soon as you have the opportunity, you need to cast your ballot this year.
Robert?
You know, it's interesting because this all plays into the conversation on the SAVE Act. And I want people to realize there's a reason that Donald Trump has made this the sole piece of legislation that he wants to pass this year, because he understands that he will not be able to steal the next election if he does not push the SAVE Act through. Right now, there are basically 3 Republicans in the Senate that are holding this up from potentially being passed and being pushed into law. We have to keep up the full court press on the Republicans in the Senate and also on some of the Democrats. And people like Fetterman who are very wishy-washy on the issue, we have to keep up the pressure on them to understand that this is a Jim Crow law, that you can either like Jim Crow laws or dislike Jim Crow laws, but this is a Jim Crow law. It is no different than I keep at my desk a copy of the Alabama literacy test from 1968. It is no different than the literacy test. It's no different than grandfather clauses. The entire concept is to limit the franchise to the groups of people that they want to be able to vote. They want to pick their own voters as opposed to the voters making their decision. And that's why it's so important we keep up the full court press, not allow this to pass, and stand up for the rights to expand the franchise, not to limit and contract it.
Well, it's much needed, and people have to recognize that when we have people who are aggressively trying to curtail voting, there is a reason for them to do so. And in the case of the GOP, we've said it many times, they don't want everybody to vote. All right, folks, we come back. We're going to talk about faith in politics. Donald Trump puts out another Jesus meme. He's an idiot. We know this man has no understanding of Christ whatsoever. So we'll tell you what a Chicago pastor has to say about this. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Support the work that we do. Join the Brina Funk fan club. Folks, this is simple. Between this show and the 5 other shows on the network, we don't have billionaires and millionaires contributing to us. Your support is critical for us to offset the expenses to produce all of these shows and all the content that we do in studio and on the road as well. And so, if you have not donated, please do so. We're asking average $50 each for our fans for the year, $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. And if you want to support us, please use Cash App. Use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here. That's also for credit cards. Checks and money order. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 2003-7-0196. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
Why does it feel like we're going backward? Voting rights under attack, schools stripped of funding, Black history erased. This is the Trump MAGA agenda. They want to take us back. They are redrawing congressional lines in states across the country, deciding who gets power and who gets silenced. We see what this is, a power grab. Virginians won't be fooled. Show up, vote, take back our power. It's a temporary measure that gives the people, not politicians, the final say. Vote yes by April 21st.
Hi, I'm Swing Cash, Basketball Hall of Famer, and you're watching Black Star Network.
We keep telling folks there's a connection between citizenship, faith, and politics. Reverend Dr. Otis Moss III, senior pastor of Chicago's Trinity United Church of Christ, connected it all in under 5 minutes. Check out what my alpha brother had to say.
I recently heard a young Black man make a statement stating that he does not do politics, and then went on to say that he does not vote. It pained me to hear a person who benefits from our ancestral struggle claim he did not vote because it does not make a difference, according to him. This young man stating this ignorance with his full chest. Voting does not make a difference. Black people have only been full citizens in this nation since 1964, the year the Civil Rights Bill was passed. This act ended legal state-sanctioned segregation. This act was part of a long battle that began when we arrived in this country. And for the purposes of this 5 minutes, I want to highlight several cases that shaped this battle. In 1857, the Dred Scott decision stated no Black person had any rights a white person was bound to respect. This legal decision effectively stated Black people were not citizens of the United States. Even if born free, we were not fully protected nor seen as human. In 1868, the 14th Amendment was passed. All persons born or naturalized are subject to the jurisdictions thereof. In other words, citizens. But the Confederacy and those descendants of the Confederacy wanted to find a way around this amendment. In 1882, they passed the Chinese Exclusion Act. No person from Asia could come to the U.S., and those who were already here could not be citizens. This was the argument that was used to create in 1896 what we know as Plessy versus Ferguson, separate but equal. The work of Black, Native American, along with Asian people led to the 1943 repeal of the Chinese Exclusion Act. This victory provided legal and organizing energy for the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that gave us full citizenship. This timeline is about faith, moral courage, and politics. Politics literally means the affairs of the city. For those who say they don't do politics, to choose not to vote and not to be informed is to give your power to people who want to take your rights away. The Supreme Court recently heard a case from this administration that seeks to appeal or to reshape a portion of the 14th Amendment and put back in place a portion of the Dred Scott decision and the Chinese Exclusion Act based on their legal argument. Thankfully, most, let me say it again, most, not all of the Supreme Court, those on the Supreme Court, sounded annoyed and skeptical of the Trump administration's case to take away birthright citizenship. This is why we are called to do two things. Stay informed, not through a headline or your phone or social media, but do something, let me tell you right now, so revolutionary, so dangerous, so subversive it could get you in trouble. Read a book. One book that I place on your docket at this moment is a book entitled One Person, No Vote: How Voter Suppression is Destroying Our Democracy by Dr. Carol Anderson. The second thing that I ask is require anyone of age who lives in your house to be registered to vote. If they're gonna live up in your house and they are not registered, they don't need to be living up in your house. If you're not registered, you can't sleep here. Let's get ready for November, not in November. Let's get ready for November right now.
The sentiment that that brother was speaking about, that Reverend Otis Moss laid out and critiqued, is one that I often hear. And what really gets on my nerves, Robert, is when I listen to these black folks, and a significant number are black men who yell tangibles, tangibles, tangibles. But then when you begin to say, okay, I want you to define that agenda, they only seem to say reparations. And when you ask, well, how are you going to get the votes, then they really can't go from there. And I challenge them all the time on this idea that, so if you don't get something before the election, then you're not going to vote, when the person you're asking of it can't actually give it to you unless there is a vote by the body, whether that is the city council, the school board, the county commissioners, the state legislature, or Congress. And the problem that we have now with all of these people with cheap microphones is that they can yell, holler, and scream on social media, on podcasts, say a whole lot, but say nothing at the very same time.
And look, on that point, when we talk about tangibles, tangible things for the African-American community, if you don't think that Biden delivered you tangibles, if you don't think Obama delivered you tangibles, if you don't think Clinton delivered you tangibles, then what the hell is Donald Trump overturning? What are all these executive orders getting rid of that we haven't had any tangible things? Why are there now between 300 and 500,000 African-American women who are either unemployed or left the workforce as a direct result of what President Trump did? Why are we seeing college admissions for African-Americans, particularly in Ivy League schools, plummet as a result of the Supreme Court decision of taking away diversity, equity, and inclusion programs? Why are we seeing military leadership being purged of all black leadership? We went from Lloyd Austin being the defense secretary to the weekend host at Fox and Friends, and they called that merit-based. So if you don't think these people are delivering for you, if you don't think you're getting anything out of it, then what the hell were all those executive orders that Donald Trump signed to get rid of those things? What was Doge cutting if there was nothing to be cut? And why are we seeing African-American unemployment tick up at a rate double what the overall unemployment rates are doing? Why are we seeing our communities be divested in, particularly educationally, as the Department of Education has decided they're going to shut down because the lady from wrestling is in charge of the Department of Education? Why are we seeing fewer and fewer African Americans in air traffic controller positions? Because they put the guy from Real World versus Road Rules Challenge that was charged of the FAA, and the first thing they did was get rid of the black employees. So if you don't think tangibles are being delivered, then you may be not reading deep enough in to see what those tangibles are. And I do think there's a responsibility on the side of the Democrats to learn from what President Trump is doing and has done. He hired a bunch of TV personalities and actors so that no matter what he does, he can send them out to every cable news show, send them out to every podcast, send them out to every corner of social media to yell about and crow about everything that that they have achieved or done and put their own messaging out there. Democrats should have been doing that exact same thing with the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department under Joe Biden, the work that was being done there. When you look at student loan reform and how that has affected the African-American community. Look, Joe Biden will eternally be, and for the rest of my life, the best president in American history because he got rid of my law school student loans. If that's not a tangible for people, I don't know what that tangible would be. So when we start talking about these things, one, the party has to do a better job of articulating to people exactly what they have done. But two, we have to stop taking our information from the back of a Cracker Jack box. You have to dive in there, dig deep, Find out what the policies are and look how they've actually been implemented to benefit you, because we're seeing that taking place on the right now, as many of the Megyn Kellys and Tucker Carlsons and Nick Fuentes and Alex Jones are saying that Donald Trump is not delivering on the tangibles for him, and they're holding his feet to the fire on it. We can hold feet to the fire, but nobody on their side is saying we're going to sit home, we're not going to vote. They're trying to change the actions of the people in office, not simply say we're going to let someone else decide our future.
So here was this this interesting tweet. This is by someone that follows me. I'm not sure if this person is real, Rebecca. This guy tweeted, President Biden won in 2020, no tangibles that he actually promised signed in law. Not an effing thing. Maybe the Democratic Party should have come with some tangibles. See, again, Rebecca, when they throw out tangibles, it's only one thing they're talking about. That's it. That's all they're talking about. Like this person here. So he posted, if the Democrats are not ready to put reparations now on the table after we have been voting for them faithful for over 60 plus years with no tangibles, I think it's time to let them go. Okay. But how are you going to get it passed? And whenever I put that out, it's amazing how people can actually go to the next step. But thinking, well, let me just make the statement. And so the issue also is that when you do say, remember there was someone who was in chat yesterday, oh, don't come with that general stuff. No, this person said, I'm asking for something that is only for black people and nobody else. And then, of course, you got to explain to them how politics actually works. Rebecca, your thoughts?
You know what, Roland? Dr. Carr once said on the show that you cannot use the tools of white supremacy to gain black liberation. And the reason why I mention that is people have to understand, where did this whole thing about tangibles come from? Was it a psyop that people got hooked into? Look, black people since the beginning of this country and before this country even convened and have demanded rights in North America on this land. And so the idea that there are things that we're asking for our humanity, and we're no longer asking for our humanity, we're demanding our humanity. We're also asking for reparations, yes. However, there is a whole plethora of policy. Reparations is more than just getting a check. Reparations is also having reparations through the tax code policy. It's also making sure having access to education and housing, the ability to pass on generation from generation wealth without it being stolen through the color of law. Reparations is more than just receiving direct money. It does include receiving direct money. I want to make that clear. But one thing I would ask is, if we're talking about tangibles, why are we just focusing on one party? Why are we just asking the Democratic Party? Why aren't we asking every major American party to deliver on this particular issue? After all, this is a systemic issue. The need for reparations is because of systemic failure and exploitation, sex trafficking and human trafficking through the lens of the transatlantic slave trade. And so if we're going to talk about this thing, then we need to talk about this thing. But just saying, oh, tangibles is starting to sound like a psyop. We understand that there is Black consciousness, and we understand that there is Black literature and research on this particular issue. But what we're seeing online, sometimes it is bots. Sometimes it's people who are well-intentioned, but we have to understand that if we are going to demand this, it doesn't make sense that we will only demand it from one party when there's two major parties in this country.
This back and forth, Brian, is to me the reason I think it's nonsensical. It's because if you don't vote, then you're guaranteed to get nothing. So you're like, okay, I'm not going to do anything, I'm not going to say anything until you give me what I want. But I can't even attempt to give you what you want if I don't get elected. And then there's a primary process. So if you want somebody to deliver you something, then maybe you support that person in the primary. Oh, I'm sorry, that's right, you're not voting. So therefore, you can't even get the candidate you want to win the primary to run in the general. It's all idiotic.
Yeah, Roland, I agree with you. And, you know, for these people out there that were Trump supporters and now they're not Trump supporters, but they say, well, I'm not going to vote for a Democrat, so I'm just going to sit it out. Yes, I'm sorry to name call, but they are. If you want to talk about tangibles, let's talk about the $175 billion that Trump and his administration stole from the American people with tariffs. That doesn't just affect African Americans, it affects everybody. Let's talk about this war in Iran that's costing us $2 billion a day when he takes 20 million people off of Medicaid and food stamps that's in this supposed big and beautiful bill. Oh, yeah, by the way, when Joe Biden left office, what was the unemployment rate for African Americans? What's the unemployment rate now? By the way, the entire country, everything's gone up. Inflation, the unemployment rate, private sector job growth has gone down. That affects everybody, especially minorities and people in this country that are living paycheck to paycheck. Those are the people that are struggling, that are paying $5 a gallon for gas in this country. But we're told, just be patriotic, spend $5 a gallon for gas. No. So I've had it with people at this point that say that, well, I'm not going to vote for this Democrat because they're not doing anything for me. I'm sorry to say this, but they're ill-informed and perhaps they're uneducated, because I can tell you right now, and I can go policy by policy, we don't have time for that. The Joe Biden administration, not perfect. The Barack Obama administration, not perfect. They were absolutely better for America, and they certainly were better for minorities than anything the orange man in office has done over the course of the last year and a half. And that's proven. That's not an opinion.
I'm just very clear. You know, Robert, I'm willing to engage these folks, but I'm going to ask this very clearly. Okay, name 5 issues. Name them.
Mm-hmm.
Name them. See, I'm not going to sit here and allow the useless rhetoric to get stated. Even if somebody says, I want reparations, okay, show me your plan of action to get it. Show me your lobbying effort. Show me what you're actually doing. Show me how you're going to get to 218 in the House, how you're going to get to 60 in the Senate, how you're going to get a president to sign it. How do you see? Again, I don't care what the issue is. If the issue is reparations, if the issue is universal health care, if the issue is anything, you actually have to do some work to get the elected officials to actually pass it. That means that you're involved in the electoral process. And this idea that I'm just going to sit out, or the silly thing, well, you know, they're just two, you know, I'm not going to choose between the lesser of two evils. Well, I'm just letting you know, one of them is going to win. And one of them will be voting on a series of issues that impact your life. So you might want to recognize that reality.
And look, this lesser two evils argument is silly. We are in a two-party system. If you do not like the party, then you have to reform the party. Remember, the way that the MAGA movement arose was you had the old school Republican Party. You had the Ronald Reagan, John McCain, Mitt Romney version of the Republican Party. And after Barack Obama beat them, you had the rise of the Tea Party, because they were far more radical and extreme than that old version of the Republican Party. And they felt that they needed to change and take over the party. 2012, 2010, 2012, they were the crazy, wild people. By 2014, they started winning office. By 2016, they were in the White House. And now here we are 10 years after that, and the MAGA movement is now a more extreme version of that Tea Party, and that is the entirety of the Republican Party. So if you're saying that the Democratic Party isn't doing enough for you, then follow that blueprint and take over the damn party. Look, elections are a multi-billion-dollar industry. If anybody who's worked in elections and campaigns understands that it is a science at this point in time, that these races are calculated down to the block, sometimes to the household on a block, that you count your votes before you even get there, then it's all about turning out those votes. And then once those people get elected, it's about making sure that you can whip those votes and get the legislation passed. The lobbying industry spends tens of billions of dollars a year on the state, local, and federal level to get the legislation they want passed. If you were talking about the litigation in the court system, billions of dollars goes into litigating cases all the way to the Supreme Court to ensure that you can get the outcome that you want, and then to make sure that you can get the people on the Supreme Court that you want to be there. Heritage Foundation, all these other groups have been working for decades to get something like Project 2025 written, put into place, and then to build a political apparatus around it to actually get it implemented and to create the legal environment, the court system that can actually make it be sustainable. So this idea that we're just going to say, I want reparations, and somebody's going to like show up with a check and a Cadillac, I mean, you got to put the work in. If you want it to happen, that means you're going to have to fundraise hundreds of millions of dollars. You're going to have to build a nationwide apparatus around it so you can get people elected on the state, local, federal level. Then once those people are elected, you're going to have to write legislation. You're going to have to whip those votes. You're going to make campaign contributions. It is work to be done. So simply saying, well, they didn't give us reparations because they don't care about us. No, politics answered the question. First day of political science class, they tell you politics answers the question of who gets what when. And then when you get a graduate degree, where and how. So when you're talking about who gets what when, you're talking about the distribution of finite resources within the society. So just as you want resources for your community, the defense industrial complex wants it. The Israeli lobby wants it. The feminist groups want it. The environmentalist groups want it. Every group wants their piece of the pie. And if you're not getting what you want, that doesn't mean you check out. That means you double down and you outwork everybody else to get it done. And until you're willing to do that, then this is just nascent online chatter until you're willing to make it happen.
All right, folks, let's talk about Trump's absolutely pathetic Department of Justice. They have filed motions to vacate the convictions of several high-profile defendants involved in the January 6th Capitol insurrection. The filing, submitted to the Court of Appeals by the United States, seeks to vacate criminal judgments against identified members of the Oath Keepers and Proud Boys, most of whom were convicted of seditious conspiracy. Oath Keepers founder Stuart Rhodes is referred to in the filings. Rhodes was convicted of plotting to oppose by force the lawful transfer of presidential power when Trump lost the 2020 election. He was sentenced to 18 years in prison for seditious conspiracy and other charges. Tuesday's filing also asked to dismiss the indictments with prejudice, meaning the charges will be permanently dismissed and cannot be brought again by the government. Brian, it goes to show you how Donald Trump will do whatever he wants to protect these thugs, these domestic terrorists. And many of these people have gone on to actually commit other crimes, including being child predators.
Yep, that's true. Roland, this gets my blood boiling. First of all, we had about 50 people that were convicted. Half of those people, violent criminals who Donald Trump called hostages and patriots. Some of those people beat police officers with their own batons. Brian Sitnick died the next day. 140 officers were injured. Some of those officers have traumatic brain injury. And as we see this footage that I'm glad you are playing right now, people on the right say, oh, no, that didn't happen. It was a tourist visit. So it doesn't surprise me that the Enrique Tarrios of the world and others are getting full-blown pardons. And some of these people, as you mentioned, are now back in prison. This gets me sick to my stomach. And the word is hypocrisy. It's hypocrisy. If you assault somebody or push somebody, which I would never condone, at a political rally, and it happens to be somebody on the right that is a victim, they want those people to get the death penalty, throw them in jail for life. But if you beat a cop on January 6th, oh, well, you're a hostage and a patriot. These are the same people that claim that they're pro-police, right? But only if it fits their narrative are they pro-police. They're certainly anti-Capitol police on January 6th. There's people out there, even in elected office, that still blame the Capitol police officers. Oh, they let them in. Let me be very clear. Everybody that broke the law that day, you're an idiot. For the people that beat police officers, for the people that committed violent acts, you're animals and you belong in jail. But you know what? These people will always talk about Black Lives Matter protests, who, by the way, last I checked, Joe Biden didn't pardon anybody who committed a violent crime during any Black Lives Matter protests, which were overwhelmingly peaceful, by the way. There was nothing peaceful about January 6th. Nothing. And yet these MAGA Republicans continue to curl themselves into their MAGA pretzel and make excuses for that day. Oh, there were 250 FBI agents that were there. Those people were coerced into doing what they did. It's why I'll never forget Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't care what she says about Donald Trump now. These people, some of them still defend the actions of those thugs on January 6th. And I'll say one more quick thing about this, Roland. Every single time I bring up January 6th, MAGA Republicans want to bring up Black Lives Matter protests. Let's clear this up right now. Tens of millions of people protested during Black Lives Matter protests because they wanted equality, and it was about police brutality, like what happened to George Floyd. Those people that were there on January 6th, even the people that didn't enter the Capitol, believed in the big lie. That's why they were there, because they thought that the election was stolen because Orange Man told them it was. That's why they were there. They tried to overthrow a free and fair election, those people chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." It had nothing to do with Black Lives Matter, but that's what they always bring it back to. That's what they do. They call people thugs during Black Lives Matter protests. But if it happened on January 6th and it was somebody white, maybe a white supremacist, maybe an Oath Keeper or a Proud Boy, all of a sudden they're hostage and patriots. Roland, that's who these people are.
He has pardoned people who have committed fraud. Rebecca, now we see what they are doing for these Oath Keeper Proud Boys. He wants these thugs to be completely cleared. And I wouldn't be surprised if these fools then try to use taxpayer money to give to them because how badly they were treated.
Well, look, this president is also signaling to those who are in his government. Like, we've heard reports around DC that he's telling folks that he's going to issue folks in his government a blanket pardon so they won't have to face accountability for the various things that they're doing currently in this administration. And so this is a signal to them, letting them know, hey, you see how I took care of those who were involved with January 6th, because they know it happened, because half of them were there. They understand what this thing is. And so at some point, after this administration is over, this country is going to have to do some serious reform in how we govern as a country. Do you actually want a president who is acting as king, who is encouraging people to do unconstitutional things, and for those people not to face consequences? And you know what? I would not be surprised if we're going to have a future of tribunals and justice commissions going over all types of things that are happening in this administration. I mean, just think about it. When you have people who have been physically removed from their homes or from the streets in Minnesota, and then they're turned out somewhere, several states later, they're just dropped off in the middle of the woods, during winter. Those are things that should not be done in this country. Those are things that aren't constitutional. Those are things that are criminal. And he's using the apparatus of the government to do things that, in my opinion, are largely unlawful. And so there is going to be accountability. And I don't care if you are working in this administration and this president or his flunkies have intimated to you that you'll be fine in the future. You're not going to have to face consequences. Don't believe that.
Robert?
I think on the exact same point, one of the things we have to really realize and think about is the fact that these people who were pardoned by President Trump, these January 6th protests, or not protesters, but rioters, many of them went on to molest children. And when you talk about the political right, and they talk about how they are so against everything and how they want to protect children, think about the children that have been abused and molested because Donald Trump gave these people pardons. And the fact is that, just as Rebecca said, Donald Trump is setting the stage for, if he does not want to leave office in 2028, he's letting everyone know, look, you'll be fine. I'll pardon you if we have to overthrow this thing. Don't worry, the law does not apply to you. Whether you're in the cabinet, whether you're a supporter, that I will have a blanket pardon across the board before I leave office, that we need to overthrow this government and keep me in power, we will do so. Part of the reason they're kicking so hard on this SAVE Act is they realize if Democrats get the gavel back in the House and the Senate, then we're going to see real hearings. We're going to see judiciary hearings. We're going to see foreign affairs, intelligence hearings. And these people are going to have to come in and testify under oath as to exactly what happened and who was involved. And this is what they fear the most. They do not want sunlight to be shown upon the things they have done. And you mentioned the point about fraud and the other parties that Trump has put out there. I'm talking about, we are close to $2.5 billion in fraud convictions that have been vacated by Trump pardons that will never go back to the people that were defrauded by the lackeys around him. And I think that one thing that's going to be very important in the next presidential campaign as we get ahead of ourselves is someone needs to campaign on the idea of a constitutional amendment to take the pardon power away from the president. I think that just as it is in many states, you need to have a council, a nonpartisan council that makes a decision as to who gets pardoned and who isn't. Because we see Donald Trump selling pardons in front of our faces, giving Jared Kushner's dad a pardon, giving random rappers pardons, giving athletes pardons because he happened to know them. And Joe Biden doesn't get off the hook either. Why would you pardon your friends and family members, but not pardon the people who stood behind you who are being politically prosecuted as a result of advocating for you? This power should not rest in the hands of one individual any longer. It has been corrupted to the point, whether you want to go back to Scooter Libby under George Bush, or if you want to go back to the Clinton administration, these things are now for sale to the rich and well-connected. And instead of this being an actual last resort of justice for people who have reformed themselves, it is now simply another political tool for corruption, and that has to be reformed. And the next Democratic president has to campaign on the idea of reforming and taking this power out of the hands of a single individual.
All right, folks, going to a quick break. And we come back, Black Star Network headlines with Brittany Noble, and then we'll talk Jackie Robinson. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
MAGA Republicans ended diversity programs, cut funding for Black students, and fired federal employees. And they won't stop there. Now, they've redrawn congressional maps so that they can rig the November elections. But we have the power to stop them. By voting yes for fair elections, we have the final say on who represents us in Congress. This is a temporary measure to restore fairness. They are not backing down, and neither can we. Make a plan to vote by April 21st and vote yes for fair elections.
I'm Mark Morial, President and CEO of the National Urban League, and I'm watching the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, time for Black Star Network headlines with Brittany Noble.
President Donald Trump once again denied Colorado Democratic Governor Jared Polis's request for assistance for those affected by wildfires and flooding. The governor's request came after wildfires scorched over 240 square miles in western Colorado and severe flooding impacted the southern part of the state. The request included federal assistance for debris cleanup, rebuilding damaged infrastructure, and investing in hazard mitigation to better protect communities. Although FEMA evaluates damage based on a specific formula, disaster declarations ultimately rest with the president. Concerns are growing about the influence of politics in these decisions. An analysis by the Urban Institute found that nearly 84% of disaster requests from states that supported Trump have been approved during his current term, while only 42% of requests from states that backed Vice President Kamala Harris in 2024 have been approved. California's Black Infant Health Program is the target of a racial discrimination lawsuit. Erica Jimenez filed a federal lawsuit accusing the state of illegally cutting her and other non-Black mothers and young children off of the state health benefits and support. Well, the lawsuit actually aims at the program and the laws passed by the California state legislature to enact and fund the racially inclusive initiative. The lawsuit specifically accuses the state of violating the rights of Jimenez and other non-Black mothers and young children to equal protection as guaranteed under the clause in the U.S. Constitution's 14th Amendment. They also claim that the program violates federal civil rights laws prohibiting government discrimination on the basis of race. Jimenez is represented in the action by attorneys from the nonprofit constitutional legal advocacy organization, the Pacific Legal Foundation. The lawsuit names the California Department of Public Health and its director, Dr. Erica Pan, as well as the LA County and Pasadena Public Health Departments and their directors as defendants. Black parents of a teenager from Indianapolis, Indiana, are still waiting to see if a police sergeant caught on video threatening their son during a traffic stop earlier this year will face disciplinary action. On February 6th, 17-year-old Travion Taylor was pulled over for failing to signal a lane change. He and his 3 passengers had just left an anti-ICE protest at a nearby high school. In a video captured on his phone, one of the officers ordered the teens to exit the vehicle because they could smell marijuana. And during the encounter, Sergeant John Waters is heard saying, "I will effing kill you," as he forcibly removes him from the car. Waters later explained that his aggression stemmed from seeing the teen reach for what he believed could be a weapon. One of the passengers was subsequently arrested for possessing a firearm. However, Travion's parents say he complied with the officers and have filed a complaint against Sergeant Waters. The Citizens Police Complaint Board held a hearing regarding the incident and will ultimately make a recommendation to the police chief on whether Waters should face any disciplinary measures. The Chicago Theological Seminary, a historic institution that played a significant role in the abolitionist movement and the Underground Railroad, has paused admissions, raising concerns about the school's future. The seminary, which has been operating at a loss of over $1 million each of the past 2 years, is still working to ensure its long-term survival. The seminary's president assured that all currently enrolled students will have a pathway to complete their degrees. The institution has experienced declining enrollment in recent years, and like many colleges all across the country, they are trying to determine whether it can continue to operate. Howard University has recently implemented a new policy that requires athletes to either stand during the national anthem or remain in the locker room. In response to the policy, the women's basketball team has decided to stay in the locker room for the upcoming seasons. For the past 6 seasons, the Bison players have kneeled during the anthem as a form of protest, a practice popularized by former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick in response to police brutality. The new protocol was introduced by Howard's Vice President of Athletics, Kerry Davis, following the game against the U.S. Army in December.
All right, folks, gonna take a break. Can we come back? I want to talk sports. One, we're gonna talk golf, and then we'll talk Jackie Robinson. What we're not gonna do, I will talk about those trash-ass Dallas Cowboys anytime, especially when somebody decides to wear that bullshit on my show. And they are trash. And the only thing they have to look forward to is the NFL draft, because they don't make the playoffs. Because they're weak. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Why does it feel like we're going backward? Voting rights under attack, schools stripped of funding, Black history erased. This is the Trump MAGA agenda. They want to take us back. They are redrawing congressional lines in states across the country, deciding who gets power and who gets silenced. We see what this is, a power grab. Virginians won't be fooled. Show up, vote, take back our power. It's a temporary measure that gives the people, not politicians, the final say. Vote yes by April 21st.
Virginia, we are counting on you. Republicans want to steal enough seats in Congress to rig the next election and wield unchecked power for 2 more years. But you can stop them by voting yes by April 21st. Help put our elections back on a level playing field and let voters decide, not politicians. This is the responsible thing to do. Help us chart a better path forward, Virginia. Vote yes by April 21st.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
On a next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, a relationship that we have to have. We're often afraid of it and don't like to talk about it. That's right, we're talking about our relationship with money. And here's the thing, our relationship with money oftentimes determines whether we have it or not. Balancing your relationship with your pocketbook. That's next on A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, here at Black Star Network.
My name is Bill Duke, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
4 years ago, when the Saudis announced they were forming Live Golf, people lost their ever-loving minds. They were yelling and screaming how this is a travesty. This government, Saudi Arabia there were more people from Saudi Arabia who were part of the 911 terrorists than anybody else. And this is what they're doing is just wrong. How they're trying to buy goodwill. I mean, they were just going on and on and on. If folks in the golf world, trash and Live Golf. I mean, just ripping them to shreds. How what they were doing was destroying the game. Okay, which also I thought was stupid. So the Wall Street Journal is now reporting that the Saudis are looking at pulling the funding from Live Golf. There's another report that said that they may very well fund it through the end of the year, but that's going to be it. Come on, go to iPad. Come on. Thank you. So Wall Street Journal says Live Golf facing imminent closure as Saudi backers weigh pulling funding. And, people were saying, oh, my God, it was trash. But no one was watching it. They couldn't get a TV contract, all those different things. And let me be real clear. Live Golf was highly successful because you know what it did? It actually forced the PGA Tour to spend more money and pay its existing players. It changed their entire financial structure. So anybody saying that says that Live Golf did not succeed, they're not correct. Now, if Live Golf goes away, I mean, obviously, as a standalone tour, it did not work. But they did force the PGA Tour to change. But that's not why I'm bringing it up. I mean, all of these people were going crazy, complaining about this. Oh, by the way, y'all do know that they played several Live Golf tournaments at Donald Trump golf courses. He wasn't complaining about them because they're putting money in his pockets. So while all of the screaming, yelling, I mean, it was insane 4 years ago. I mean, 911 families came out and blasting this decision and blasting the PGA Tour and blasting individual players. Yet, last week, the same Wall Street Journal reported this. Actually, this is not last, this is just 3 days ago. Sorry, it was last week. Today is the 15th, April 6th. Gulf funds agreed to back Paramount's $81 billion takeover of Warner. Commitments from Middle East entities will help offset costs for the Ellison family. So if you scroll up and you read this story, what you will see right here, wow, Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund has agreed to provide roughly $10 billion of the nearly $24 billion to Paramount, run by David Ellison, the son of billionaire Oracle co-founder Larry Ellison, who both are in bed with Donald Trump. I'm sorry, do y'all hear any of the complaints? I don't. It's amazing how silent people are. Like, they're saying nothing. Now, they were going crazy about the Saudis' funding of golf tournament. But they're saying nothing about the Saudis being a part of a consortium that's providing $24 billion for an entertainment company. Remember when they said, oh, this is them trying to buy goodwill for their, to explain away Khashoggi and all that. Remember all of that? But y'all notice how silent people are. I'm not sure. I don't understand what's going on here and why the same people are so incredibly silent right now. It's amazing to me. It's amazing to me how you don't hear all the criticism. Oh, they were talking about federal investigations of the Saudis for funding Live Golf. Do y'all hear anybody calling for federal investigations of the Saudis for being a part of a $24 billion consortium? No, I don't think so. It's just amazing how you don't see it nor hear it. But That also got me to, when I saw this, I thought it was pretty interesting. Dave Chappelle sat down with Michelle Martin of NPR. And she raised the issue to him when he performed in Saudi Arabia. Listen to what Chappelle had to say. Really interesting what Chappelle had to say and how quiet people are. All right, let's go.
U.S. intelligence did make it clear that they believe that the Saudis killed Jamal Khashoggi in the embassy in Turkey. And you knew that when you went, right?
Oh, absolutely. Now, I should tell you.
You had no qualms?
I won't say that. They asked me to go years before that, and I said no for that very reason. Since that time, the United States government does business with the Saudis. Netflix does business with the Saudis. Everyone, the Saudis finance tons of movies. All these, I know, I see them financing boxing matches and all these things. And none of these things were an issue until I went there. Now, why is that? As soon as a black man can make money off the plantation, they try to tell you that the money is dirty. Well, okay, I'll go home and spend the money with actual slave owners on it. Where is this clean money you're talking?
But you said you hesitated for years to go. There are years you didn't go. So what made the difference for you?
Time. Time and circumstance. Time and the wheels of commerce kept turning. You know, if you want to be that pure about money, then stop driving your car, stop eating, don't use your cell phone. Everything is tethered to something that's just terrible. And I can make a million excuses or reasons to deprive that crowd of that show. But man, when I was standing in front of them, I feel like I did the right.
I remember when Live Golf came out. Remember they were trying to come up with Charles Barkley. And I was like, do y'all know how many companies take Saudi Arabia money? How many companies that are publicly traded that the Saudis invest in? But it's interesting that it was all this smoke for golf. Chappelle is right. Chappelle is absolutely right. America, American companies, the American government, we do business with the Saudis. In exchange for them keeping oil at a certain price, we provide them weapons. So let's be clear. Stop all the moralizing. Stop being hypocritical, because we see what's going on here. Look at my panel here. Brian, it was just amazing. Yeah. It was amazing to me to see all the criticism, and they got nothing to say about the money they're investing in Hollywood right now.
Yeah, so Roland, I have some strong opinions on this. First of all, obviously, I agree with you. There's Saudi money everywhere. By the way, the LPGA would not survive if not for Saudi money and sponsorships. So I'm with you on that. It's blatant hypocrisy. Here's my issue with Live Golf. I don't think it's good for the game. Maybe that's a different topic, but I have a problem with golfers that say they're doing it to grow the game. No, they're not. They're doing it for money, and that's okay. Dave Chappelle went over there. He did his thing. I didn't criticize him for it. Make your money, Dave. You're a great talent. If Live Golf wants to pay you a couple $100 million like they did with Phil Mickelson, who am I to say you can't do that? Yeah, the Saudi government's done some really bad things. But as you correctly pointed out, and as Dave Chappelle correctly pointed out, there's Saudi money everywhere, everywhere in this country. Like it or not, it's there. It's money. If you have a talent and you want to take care of your family and you're getting offered a lot of money, who's to tell you that you shouldn't be doing that because Saudi government is bad? I know what they did to Khashoggi. It was horrible. That was murder. But I'm not going to criticize Dave Chappelle. Heck, I'm not going to criticize PGA golfers that go over to Live when they offer them boatloads of money to do so. All I ask is don't lie about it. Don't look at us in the camera and say, I did it to grow the game of golf. No, they didn't. They're lying. They did it because they did it for the money. And guess what? I'm not going to criticize them for that. That's my only thing that maybe we might disagree on a little bit, Roland, but I totally agree with you with what you're saying. It's hypocrisy. There's Saudi money everywhere outside the world of sports.
Look, listen, people have their own motives. I went to a live golf tournament in Indianapolis. There were a lot of people who were actually there who never even been to a golf tournament before. Okay? When I went to the fan zone, because bottom line is I've been to PGA tournament stops, and frankly, they're boring if you're not really a golf person or if you're not an adult who's just drinking. But it's neither here nor there. I get it. The problem that I have is I just remember, Robert, all of this energy. I mean, Congress, we need to investigate. I mean, it was insane. And I'm sitting there going, oh, so now the Saudis are going to dump billions into, they're going to dump $14 billion into David Ellison's, right-wing media companies. Like, all right, no big deal. Where's all the MAGA people? Where's all of the America First people? All of the people who were like, damn the Saudis. Where did all those folks go? It's amazing how quiet they are now.
Well, Roland, in the words of the great prophets, Wu-Tang Clan, cash rules everything around me, cream. Get the money, dollar bill, y'all. And beyond even the Hollywood investments, let's remember that one of the first things that Donald Trump did when he got back into office was announce a $1 trillion investment deal with the Saudis into the United States of America.
Which is bullshit. Which is totally bullshit.
And this is, but hold on. He announced that, but then that was to cover up the actual deals they were doing with the Trump organization with the Saudis. They're building a $1 billion Trump Plaza in Saudi Arabia. They're investing another $7 billion in projects through the Trump organization in Saudi Arabia. You're talking about the Jared Kushner, who's negotiating with Iran right now on behalf of America. When he left the Trump administration, he got $2.2 billion from the Saudis for development projects. And as a result of this, the Saudis are now considered what's called a major non-NATO ally of the United States of America, which means that effectively they have their own Article 5 with the U.S. If any country attacks Saudi Arabia, we attack them on Saudi Arabia's behalf. I don't think many people realize that by giving them this designation, we are essentially Saudi Arabia's attack dog. So if anyone goes after the Saudi royal family, if anyone attacks the nation, if anyone tries to invade them, we invade on their behalf. They have a very similar agreement with us that we have with Israel at this point, where we are simply their big brother and we drive the U.S. Navy over in order to protect them. In addition to that, we had a $142 billion arms deal with the Saudi, so where we're now giving them F-35 stealth fighter jets. Now, if you want to know what an F-35 stealth fighter can do, that's what Israel uses every time they fly into Iran to evade the radar and assassinate people. We're now going to give that to the Saudis in order for them to do with it. Who knows what they're going to do with it? We're also giving them 300 tanks and additional investment. So the point is, whatever money they gave to Dave Chappelle is a drop in the bucket, is not even a rounding error compared to the corruption that our government is going through by being in bed with the Saudis. And the fact that this administration, we haven't even got into the Saudi investments into the Trump cryptocurrency scam that exists. We haven't got into the scam, which was Neom City, the Line City that they were going to build, which went from being a 20-mile-long futuristic city to like a maybe couple block-long experiment that's taking place. This is all international money laundering going on at the highest levels. And nobody at those levels gives a damn about human rights, gives a damn about Khashoggi. Then it's interesting to me that this administration uses the argument that we want to defend the rights of protesters in Iran in order to justify invading or bombing and invading them. We want to protect the human rights of women in Iran to justify our military actions. But they say nothing about those same things taking place in Saudi Arabia because they are giving us a bunch of money. And to Chappelle's point earlier, not in this interview, but in his stand-up special, we don't say anything about the number of journalists that Israel has killed during their war in Gaza, their war in Lebanon, their war in Iran, and throughout the region. They've killed hundreds of journalists. And just because they did it with bombs instead of a bone saw doesn't mean that we can absolve them of any of the crimes they've committed. So this idea that somehow any entertainer is supposed to have a higher moral value than the President of the United States and the U.S. government, I think is fanciful at best. And as Dave Chappelle said, this is just an occasion where because he is who he is, all of a sudden the spotlight is placed on him, as opposed to the tens of billions of dollars that the Saudis are placing directly into the pockets of Donald Trump and the Trump organization.
Rebecca?
You know, plus everything that Robert said. But here's the thing, this is under capitalism. Sure, business and commerce existed before capitalism, but under capitalism, what we see is that there is a devoid, there's a void of morality. There isn't any central values other than make money. And you make money on the basis of exploitation, of having a permanent underclass. So as long as we're subscribed to capitalism, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see people doing bad things in the name of money.
Well, that's certainly the case, but I just, again, it's just really interesting how many people are so quiet. All right, going to a quick break. We come back. We'll talk Jackie Robinson right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
MAGA Republicans ended diversity programs, cut funding for Black students, and fired federal employees. And they won't stop there. Now, they've redrawn congressional maps so that they can rig the November elections. But we have the power to stop them. By voting yes for fair elections, we have the final say on who represents us in Congress. This is a temporary measure to restore fairness. They are not backing down, and neither can we. Make a plan to vote by April 21st and vote yes for fair elections.
What's up? It's Talib Kweli. I'm CEO. This is the Black Star Network.
Day, April 15, 1947, Jackie Robinson made history when he debuted at Ebbets Field for the Brooklyn Dodgers. Robinson's legacy endures as Major League Baseball commemorates the anniversary of the day he broke baseball's color barrier, becoming the first black player to participate in a Major League game since 1884. That's right, black players were playing before, but then they banned them because there were racists running the league, and then they came back in 1947. This marks the 22nd year the Major League Baseball has declared April 15th as Jackie Robinson Day across the league. All players across the league will be wearing the number 42 jersey. This is the video they dropped today featuring former Yankees pitcher CC Sabathia.
Courage, determination, excellence. These are not just Jackie's values. They were a part of America's promise. In every child who dares to dream, in every voice that lifts and inspires others, Jackie lives on. Today we all carry him. In every place where someone dares to belong, Jackie is not just baseball history, he is America's history. We are Jackie Robinson, and we all belong in this game.
Folks, as I said, all across Major League Baseball, the number 42 jersey will be worn by all of the players. It is the only jersey that is retired in all of Major League Baseball. And we often make this point here on this show, trying to remind people that when we talk about Major League Baseball, it's actually white baseball. It's white organized baseball. You had Major League Baseball stars in the Negro Leagues. So that distinction, I think, is really important because I believe we make a mistake when we refer to it as Major League Baseball. In fact, many called it organized baseball or white organized baseball. And you had Negro League owners, and the best talent was in the Negro Leagues. And so I do think it's important, Robert, on this day to recognize Jackie Robinson and what he did, but we also have to also recognize that Jackie Robinson and all the other black players going from the Negro Leagues to white baseball actually destroyed a black-owned league, the Negro Leagues.
You know, this is a cautionary tale about integration, when you really think about it, that we wanted so much to be part of and have the recognition of and have the financial aspects of being part of white organized baseball. And then similarly with our communities, cutting those streams of segregation, cutting off second-class citizenship, making sure we can be integrated into the broader society. But with that, similar to what you were saying, we ended up losing parts of what made our culture unique, what made what we were creating unique and powerful. And I sometimes think of the fact that, well, just last year, President Trump, as part of his directive to ban diversity, equity, and inclusion throughout the federal government, took down a plaque commemorating Jackie Robinson's military service, as well as his subsequent court-martial, as part of their effort to whitewash history. And when you integrate into someone else's house, when you allow someone else to dictate his story to you, you allow them the ability to then tell that story on your behalf. And when you start losing those aspects of your history, losing those aspects of your culture, losing those aspects of what makes you you, this is part of the reason that we see so few African Americans playing baseball today on a professional level, because they don't have that same genetic tie. They don't have that same historic tie to the sport or to the organization. So as we're commemorating Jackie Robinson Day, I think it's important for us not just to think about him, but to all the players in the Negro Leagues who came before him, all of the Black communities that that rose up and cultivated those communities and built the game that they love. And when we see these players now getting these $300, $400 million contracts, realizing that we have the ability to build and craft those things again for our own communities, to make sure those dollars stay with us, and that for the next generation, whatever that next thing may be, that we can be at the forefront of that and not make some of the same mistakes we made in the past.
I think what's also important, and I saw this a little bit earlier on the feed of Bob Kendrick, who runs the Negro League Baseball Museum in Kansas City. We talk about Jackie Robinson wearing number 42, Rebecca, but he wore number 5 for the Kansas City Monarchs. That was a Negro League team that he played for before being signed to the Dodgers.
Yep, absolutely. Here's the thing, even to the question that you asked, Robert, when we talk about the idea of integration, it is the reason why there's a lot of Black thought around desegregation versus integration. Because we know with desegregation, that was about desegregating government opportunities, desegregating resources, making sure that Black families that paid into this country also received their fair share instead of having separate but equal. And integration is about assimilation. It's also about violent erasure. And so, you know, this is an instance where we saw Black excellence in sports, and we saw Black businesses, Black business owners, the ability to grow generational wealth stymied because of integrating white baseball and breaking the so-called color line. And so, you know, even as we move forward in this country, like we talk about, you know, what's next after this current administration, when we talk about reparations, when we talk about different grievances and rightful grievances that Black Americans have against this country based on things that were stolen from us because, you know, under the color of law, one of the things that we have to think about as we're building and making sure that we have strong communities moving into the future is understanding that we have to be thoughtful of how we make sure that Black communities are strong in the future, and making sure that we're not giving up our legacy, we're not giving up our intellectual property just so we can be accepted by white society. We never will. And that's okay. But, you know, desegregate our resources, but don't force the violent erasure of us.
Brian, the point we've been making here that people need to remember, Jackie Robinson was not the first Black player in Major League Baseball. Black players played in the 1800s. But then the racists said no Black players. So there were Black players, and then racism took over, and then Robinson comes in 1947. But there were other Black baseball players before him.
That's a really good point you make. And you think of all the hatred and the danger that so many of these Black ball players had to go through back in the day, and they persevered, right? And now they should be looked at as heroes. But I think we have a problem in this country, as was just mentioned. They want to erase history. When I say they, I mean the Trump administration, white supremacists. They don't want our children to learn in school, not just, what Jackie Robinson did. They don't want our kids to learn about what slavery was. They don't want our kids to learn really about anything when it goes back into American history, good or bad, when it comes to African Americans. And listen, I'm one of those people. I always remember this day, not just because it's the day before my birthday, but what Jackie Robinson did on this day and why this day is so important and why Major League Baseball, all of Major League Baseball, is celebrating this day and how important it is. But we cannot allow our politicians today to erase history. We certainly cannot allow our politicians today to erase Black History Month. I think I go back to Martin Luther King Day and the fact that there was a Martin Luther King statue in the Oval Office. You know this story. They want to replace it with a Charlie Kirk statue. It's sickening. It's disgusting. We cannot allow it to happen. History, whether good or bad, needs to be taught. We need to learn, all of us, including our children in our schools. Jackie Robinson was a hero for what he did. And as I mentioned, the danger that he had to go through, and he persevered through it. I think that's what I remember when I think of Jackie Robinson, is what he had to go through, coming out on the other side, a hero. I just think it's an incredible story, and more people need to learn about it. And you can't erase history. As much as the Trump administration can try to do that, you can't erase history. And I think it's important that not only you're talking about this, Roland, but so many others are as well. It's really important.
Folks, Jackie Robinson was inducted to in the Baseball Hall of Fame, Cooperstown, 1962. And when he was inducted, he only wanted his plaque to speak to his accomplishments on the field. Yet in 2008, the museum, along with his wife, Rachel Robinson, expanded that display there to include a lot more things. This is a video the National Baseball Hall actually dropped regarding that. Check it out.
We're standing on the second floor of the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum in the exhibit that is known as the Souls of the Game, Voices of Black Baseball. This exhibit first opened in May of 2024. But now in 2026, we have a new addition to the exhibit, and it's actually an older item from the Hall of Fame. It is Jackie Robinson's original Hall of Fame plaque from when he was elected and inducted in 1962. This plaque was recently on loan to the Jackie Robinson Museum in New York City, but within the last month, it's come back to Cooperstown. And rather than go into storage down in our lower level archive, we decided we would showcase it in this exhibit, The Souls of the Game. So why was this plaque redone? Why do we call this the old plaque? And why is there a newer plaque in the gallery? Well, when Jackie Robinson was elected and inducted in 1962, he really wanted the focus to be on what he did on the field, his statistics, on the field achievements. Didn't want the focus to be on civil rights, on his breaking the color barrier. So the Hall of Fame plaque from 1962 reflects that. There's no mention of civil rights. There's no mention on the plaque of him breaking the color barrier in 1947. Well, when you consider that Jackie Robinson died young, and he died more than 50 years ago, well, this became a concern to his widow, Rachel, in the sense that his story potentially could get lost, especially to younger fans coming to the Hall of Fame. Let's say these younger fans that come here and they see his plaque on the first floor, but maybe they don't get up to the second floor and see this exhibit. Other mentions of Jackie in the timeline of baseball history. She was rightly concerned that that part of history would be lost to the younger generation. So she asked the Hall of Fame's board of directors to redo the plaque, make at least a mention of what he did for civil rights. The board of directors agreed that was the correct thing. So the plaque was completely rewritten. The new plaque is done in our contemporary style, about 85 to 90 words that fill up the bottom half of the plaque. And then the last sentence is a specific mention of him breaking the color barrier, integrating the game, essentially telling us of his important role in civil rights. And that big part of the change of his plaque that was not there in 1962, but has been there since the plaque was redone in 2008. So now we showcase both the new plaque of Robinson down in the gallery, but also the original plaque up here in the Souls of the Game. And we give visitors to this museum a chance to see both plaques, how they are different from each other, and why they are different from each other.
That was necessary. I think Rachel Robinson, who is still with us, she's 101 now, I think. Rebecca, she was right. I don't want the next generation to not know what he endured off the field, also what he accomplished off the field. This is somebody, first black corporate vice president. He was a prolific fundraiser for the NAACP, was a Republican, was highly critical of Richard Nixon Republicans not reaching out to African Americans. He, of course, campaigned against Senator Barry Goldwater, who opposed the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Jackie Robinson, days before he died, was being honored, and he called out Major League Baseball saying he looked forward to the day when there was going to be a black third base coach leading to a black manager in Major League Baseball. Until this man's took his last breath out of a heart attack, and he was, of course, riddled with diabetes. He was fighting for change.
$30,000.
Guys, I'm going to Rebecca. Rebecca?
So when we hear now people telling athletes to shut up and dribble, that they need to just focus on the court or the game of play, they've been saying this for decades. And the reason why athletes are attacked that way is because they have outsized impact. They have a platform. People are fans of them. People listen to them. People spend thousands of dollars, in support of athletes. And so, for many of our Black athletes, we need them to speak out on social issues. That has been the spirit of Muhammad Ali. That's been the spirit of Jackie Robinson. And those are the things that are important when you have such a large and outsized platform. But finally, I would say this, is that it's important to see the whole person, not to celebrate them for the rhythm, but also understand the blues that they went through as well. Understand some of the great pressure and depression that many of those athletes went through because they did choose to stand up on behalf of the community.
Folks, right now at the Jackie Robinson Museum, there's a Chad Roywood Jr. and Howard Bryant. Let's just go live there. We'll just want to play a little bit of this.
These are the African-American pitchers who have won 20 games in the big leagues. It's the number, I believe, is 14. David Price is the last one. And so the inside joke with the Black Aces is Fergie Jenkins is one of them, but Fergie's Canadian. How come he gets to be a Black Ace? And my man Louis Tiant, may he rest in peace, was like, I'm Black, I won 23 times, right? And they said, no, you're Cuban. He's like, no, but I'm still Black. And so it's funny because there are a handful of players that I covered that were Latino but also identified as Black, whereas there are also a lot of players where if you call the Dominican player Black, you want to punch him in the face. Yep. So El Duque, Black. Louis Tiant, David Ortiz, Black and Latino, right? So there's this thing inside the game where there's a statistical distinction, even though everybody's African.
And then to the question you asked me about whether or not Major League Baseball's involvement in Birmingham and fixing up fields has helped the sport as a whole in the city, I would say it's helped immensely. They came. The city where Willie Mays is from, Fairfield, Alabama, is a dirt poor town. Like in the last 5 years, their police and fire has been annexed to the county. They don't even have local PD anymore. And for them to come into town, so they don't have money to fix a baseball field. So for MLB to come in and fix Willie Mays Park, that's huge for Fairfield. It's huge for Miles College, which also plays on some of the ancillary fields in and around the city of Fairfield. Bigger than that, Rickwood is still a high school facility that's also used by Miles, sometimes by UAB. So you have 8 area high schools and a couple of county schools that come in. And so for them to redo Rickwood Field for MLB specifics for the Negro League tribute game that they did, They had to come in and redo the field from the ground, from the gravel through the soot and the sand all the way back up.
And agree to maintain it.
So not only pay to maintain it, but now you have to have a groundskeeper. I also didn't know this about Major League Baseball. Apparently to like run grass in the MLB, you need like a 10-year degree in grass stuff. And I don't know what it's called, but it's a super,
That's what it's called.
It's a super serious horticulture or whatever it is. The person that is in charge of going around to every major league field, all 30 teams, to make sure that the grass is up to spec every season, they sent him down to Rickwood, and he trained a brother that was already working at Rickwood. They didn't bring in their own people. And so now that brother's equipped to train the next person under him and the next person under him. And they've left what I believe is an impactful situation where there's fields that are accessible and usable on a regular basis. More important than that is that they still come back and they do the East-West game every year. So now you're paying tribute to all of these retired black players in the game at a field as historic as Rickwood, and the folks come out, and it's proof that there's an audience for it. So now when the mayor is out there walking around, I think didn't the first gentleman come, didn't Doug Emhoff come to, he swung by at one time. Like, these people come to the city, it brings a buzz around baseball, and now you have the mayor goes, all right, we'll approve the field. There was an initiative for a baseball complex to be built in Birmingham in a district where the one white city council person did not want it. She fought against it, they won, and MLB hadn't come back to Birmingham for almost a decade after that. And we were talking about a complex that would have had 9 fields. That referendum is back on the table for 2027 now.
Yep.
And so that's the type of stuff that having a presence and a sustained presence can do. So, I mean, absolutely, I think it's helped. Because if the kids in the inner city, if they have a field and a place to play, even if it's just pick up stickball, you hope the interest sticks with them a little bit longer.
That's right. And this is the reason why you cannot have a functioning democracy with no public wealth. I mean, you can rely on corporations, but you need public wealth. And public wealth in this country is virtually zero in so many local municipalities. Anybody else? More thoughts, questions, comments?
I had one real quick.
I can't see you. Oh, there you go. Okay, sorry.
It's a little bit selfish. I grew up in Somerville, New Jersey, the home of Paul Robeson.
Paul Robeson.
And my wife and I both did, and she does a little pop-up museum with Paul Robeson being the main focus. He's criminally under, no one knows who he is. He was Luther, Denzel, Malcolm X, valedictorian, Jim Brown. Is there any chance your book could get turned into a Netflix documentary? Or I wrote him 2 letters. But I'm asking you.
Let's just say that the way Hollywood works, yes, the phone has rung, but I'll believe it when I see it. This gentleman here, it's coming. Here we go.
Mike's on the way.
All right, folks, and so we're going to actually grab that and restream that whole conversation later. So you may be wondering, how did all of Major League Baseball get around to wearing number 42? Check this out. Ken Griffey Jr. Sat down and talked about it. Listen to this.
And for those of you at home that don't know, you see all the players wearing number 42. That was a brainchild of this guy. So I want to talk to you about that. How did that come about? The number had been retired, and players were picked out every now and then to wear 42. How did it come about all of them were wearing 42?
I wore it a couple times prior to that while I was in the Mariner uniform. And every year they celebrate it. And I'm like, how you gonna celebrate something and not wear his number and honoring him and not wear the number? And so I called Bud at home.
Called him at his house.
Yeah.
Hello, Mr. Seeley.
Yeah, I was like, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? I said, would it be possible if I wore 42 on Jackie Robinson Day? And he says, we had like a 10-minute conversation. He said, hey, is it okay if I call Rachel to make sure it's okay? And I was like, absolutely. And he called me back the next day. He says, we're a go, but, can everybody wear it? I said, the more the merrier. And he said, I think it's good that everybody on that day wears it. I said, perfect. To have everybody do it, I didn't think it was going to go that far and wasn't thinking that big, but it's been an unbelievable thing since day one.
When you saw and played your first game with everybody wearing number 42, what was that like?
It was almost like Little League, because, you know, in Little League, the first year, you ain't got no numbers on your back. And then all of a sudden, you know, you got the team name on the front or whoever you played for on the front and no name on the back. And then all of a sudden, you go in there, and when you look at the lineup card, it just say 42, 42, 42, 42. And it was very touching and very special. But it was a little weird because you know these guys by their numbers and just look at them and go.
That's a pretty interesting history there. Brian, what I also think is great about this, what happens is that by this being an annual thing, you then begin to see, for instance, Bob Kendrick, I saw the Dodgers had posted photos of him speaking today. This was today. The Mets and the Dodgers are playing, and so Bob Kendrick, who runs the Negro League Baseball Museum, he spoke to both teams. That's him right there in front of the Jackie Robinson statue at Dodger Stadium. What it does is it also, for those who choose to cover it, forces them to deal with this story, to not only deal with, sure, Robinson breaking the color barrier, but having to talk about the racism that he had to deal with and all those different things, because all too often in this country, we really don't like to confront American history. We're about to celebrate 250 years of American history, and it's going to be a complete whitewashing by Donald Trump because they don't want to talk about all the hell that Robinson went through. They only just want to just tout his achievement.
I agree with you. Unfortunately, in our country, and most people that own professional sports teams and baseball teams look like me. And I say unfortunately because I'd like to see more diversity, but there are some people I would imagine in Major League Baseball that own franchises that look like me that don't want to talk about this. Now, they can't say that publicly. Why? Because they're going to lose fans, right? They're going to lose their base of fans. But I'm glad. I love to hear people like Ken Griffey Jr. God, I love Ken Griffey Jr. so much. And hearing his story is so great. And some of the greats to ever play this game talking about Jackie Robinson. And you're absolutely right. It forces some of these people to have to either listen or talk about it. And I don't care if it makes them uncomfortable or not. It's such a huge part of not just the game of baseball and sports in general, but our country, the history of our country. And we've talked about this earlier in the program. It's important for everybody to learn a piece of history. And this is such a big part of it, Jackie Robinson. So God bless him on April 15th. I remember this day, every year. And I'm so glad that Major League Baseball, in a sense, is forced to talk about this sort of stuff. And I hope they continue to do so.
This is also, listen, I don't know what CNN, MS Now, and Fox News and the rest of people are going to do. This is also why black-owned media is so critically important because just like last week, listen, Major League Baseball should celebrate Henry Aaron Day every April 8th. That was the day he broke Babe Ruth's record, 715 home runs, but we made sure to pay tribute here as well. That's also in terms of what our responsibility is too. Is Robert there?
Yeah. Look, Roland, I think the problem that we're going to run into is that if we don't get a hold of our history, we don't hold on to this. By the time this administration is done, they're going to try to explain to you that Jackie Robinson was a white man, that there was no racism at all, that it was all a picnic. They're going to whitewash just the same way they whitewash everything else. And this is why it's so crucial that we keep these memories alive. There's even, we need to dig deeper to talk about the number of black players who played in the major leagues before Jackie Robinson who were able to pass for being white, people who were Homer Plessy's color, who were octoroons and quadroons who played. They had to keep their race a secret. There's a deep and long and lasting history there. But the part of what they are doing by wiping Black History Month from school curriculums, by taking it out of the military, by taking it out of museums, by creating their version, this Project 2025 version of America, they want to ensure that we forget those things so that they can use their system to inject their own version of what happened. And I talk to many young people now who grew up in kind of that post-racial Obama era of America, who have no ideas about the things that happened beforehand because we spent so much time sanitizing and protecting them, then teaching them about this post-racial society. They don't understand the lion's den that we came out of and what we went through to get to where we are at today. So this is why it's so important that we give the truth and opportunity to flourish. Use this day not just as a moment to celebrate Jackie Robinson, but all those pioneers, the ones that who are on those Negro League buses, the ones whose names have never been known, the ones whose pictures only exist in family notebooks. Bring those out and make sure folks understand the fight that took place. It's never about one person. It's a symbol of a generation that fought to give us the rights we have today.
Rebecca, final comment.
Look, if you don't understand history, if you don't learn history, you're going to repeat it. There's a lot of people, there's certain people in this country who will make a whole bunch of money if we repeat our previous history. And so, yes, to everyone else's point on the panel, we have to make sure people actually understand what's happening. You cannot rely on sending your kids just to school to learn history. You know, I'm very grateful that my parents, you know, growing up in Omaha, was very intentional with making sure that I understood Black history, making sure on the weekends that I visited the various Black history museums, that I spent time as a small child watching Eyes on the Prize, being 7, 8, 9 years old, watching Eyes on the Prize. And it was something that we didn't just do one time, but it was something over and over because my parents wanted me to have a strong sense of identity, a strong sense of pride and understanding. Because once again, you know, in you know, this first 250 years, you know, we have to say never again for certain things, but we can only say never again and mean it if we actually understand what happened.
All right, Robert, Rebecca, Brian, I appreciate y'all joining us. Thanks a lot. And Rebecca, don't wear that cowboy stuff again. Ever. Ever. You might as well just burn that stuff right now.
Tony Dorsett, Michael Irvin, Emmett Smith, Deion Sanders. Like, come on, Tara Owens. Like, I support the Cowboys. You know the first Cowboys in this country were Black, Roland?
But they damn sure were the Dallas Cowboys.
They were around Dallas.
And matter of fact, no, they weren't around Dallas. Matter of fact, y'all don't even play in Dallas. Y'all ain't played in Dallas since the early 70s. You went from Irving to Arlington, so you ain't even in the city.
Well, you aren't the Houston Oilers anymore either.
Yeah, they're the Tennessee Titans, and we have a team called the Houston Texans. And in fact, the original team in Dallas is now the Kansas City Chiefs, so y'all ain't in the original. Yeah.
Well, we have that in common with our teams.
Y'all ain't got nothing in common with us, and the only nothing. They ain't not now nothing.
It's gonna be a rebuilding
year. Hold up now. Let's be real clear. Hold up, get your facts together. Ain't no rebuilding year for the Texans. Okay, now y'all the ones who didn't make the playoffs. I know who did make the playoffs, and that's the Texans. So, I mean, let's be real clear. Your team is trash. Let's be real clear. And let me go ahead. And let me go ahead. First of all, if you have a child who's now 30, that was the last time y'all won anything. So you might want to just go ahead and be quiet about that little Super Bowl stuff.
Only one team a year can win.
Only one team. Y'all don't even make the playoffs.
There's 32 teams. There's 32 teams.
Boo. Y'all don't even make the playoffs. What you talking about?
I want to defend her and say the Cowboys are much better than my pathetic Las Vegas Raiders. They are pitiful.
No, damn that. We can focus on Dallas. And let me just go ahead and remind you, Rebecca. Let me just remind you, Rebecca, this was the ass whipping we gave y'all last year in your stadium. Dropped the lower third. It was Texans 34, Cowboys 10, and that goes for Rebecca, Deshaun, Antoine, Henry, and all you old punk-ass Cowboy fans. We whooped that ass last year, and we're going to do it again. Okay, we done. Robert, you about to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, Roland, what you going to do this weekend when old man LeBron comes to Houston? He going to take y'all out?
When who?
When old man LeBron comes to Houston for the Rockets.
We beating his ass, too.
No. Look, I'm telling you, old man LeBron, the Rockets, Ronnie, and the G League Lakers got y'all.
No, okay, so right now you need to be drug tested. Okay, we done. We done. All right, appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Y'all, this was a tribute the Baseball Museum put together a few years ago in Jackie Robinson. I want y'all to check it out.
The importance of the occasion. I remember Mr. Ricky saying to me that I couldn't fight back, and I wondered whether
this issue with the video. Give me 1 second so I can get this squared away. This thing sometimes acts up a little bit. Actually, I'm gonna try this here. Let me try something else. We got different ways of connecting. So sometimes the hard line. So let's see if we can try this one here. This should connect. All right. All right, let's try it again.
well, I knew the importance of the occasion. I remember Mr. Ricky saying to me that I couldn't fight back.
All right, what we got going on here? I know, just hold on. I'm not sure why this is not playing. I had it playing earlier, so not sure, but that's not a problem. So here's what we're going to do, folks. We have lots of stuff. We're going to play for y'all. So one, we're going to, show you some of Howard Bryant. Remember we're talking about Henry Aaron. He had an amazing book called The Last Hero, A Life of Henry Aaron. This was by Howard Bryant, so a fantastic book on Henry Aaron. But he also has his new book. It's called Kings and Pawns, Jackie Robinson and Paul Robeson in America. A fascinating book, so we're going to have that conversation for you. Also, 3 years ago, when we went to the Jackie Robinson Museum grand opening, we covered the grand opening. We're going to restream that for you. We did a lot of great coverage there. Interview with Spike Lee, interview the makers of a documentary on Jackie Robinson. So lots of fantastic content. So we're going to have all that for you right now on Roland Martin and the Black Star Net, Roland Martin Unfiltered, the Black Star Network. So I want you all to check that out. Before we do so, be sure to support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. You want to contribute via Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. It's for credit cards as well. Check some money order, make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered. P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo, RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. All y'all people on YouTube, y'all should be hitting that damn like button. Y'all are slacking. Be sure to download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Samsung Smart TV. Also, be sure to get our Roland Martin Unfiltered swag by going to shopblackstarnetwork.com and also support the other Black-owned products that we have there at shopblackstarnetwork.com. The Breakdown with Brittany Noble. Watch it every single day, noon Eastern, right here on the Black Star Network. All right, y'all. Here is our extensive coverage, again, on this Jackie Robinson Day, April 15th. I hope you enjoy it. This is why Black-owned media matters, because I can guarantee you there was no other Black-owned media who was there as we were broadcasting from New York City for the opening of the Jackie Robinson Museum. And so here's all of our coverage on this Jackie Robinson Day. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Holla!